ID. Is the government requiring ID to vote? Is that authoritarian, Abby? Is that government interference? The left certainly wants to say that it's a relic of Jim Crow and that it is government interference in a sacred ritual.
Right. It wants to say, voter ID laws, they penalize the minorities because, your little old black woman in the South that doesn't have a driver's license. And so by the way, I don't know any little old black women in the South who don't have driver's license, and I'm from the South. Yeah,
I know a decent number of little old black women too. Right.
So their big push behind the Freedom to Vote Act, which just failed in the Senate yesterday. Yay.
Because that's not what it was. It wasn't freedom to vote.
No, it wasn't freedom to vote. But a big part of that was they wanted to basically pull back all voter ID laws. And so they couched it in a number of terms, but basically at the end of the day, it was you don't need official ID to vote. You can, present other types of ID, like a bank statement or something that's mailed to your address with your name on it.
Oh my gosh.
I can print one of those in 5 minutes from my computer.
Right. Yeah. And so that was the whole push. And they're like, this is freedom to vote. This is how we end discrimination against minorities who are not able to vote because they don't have the IDs that they need. And then it failed in the Senate, of course.
Thank the Lord.
But it's oxymoronic, honestly. Yeah. When you think about, their whole kind of more authoritarian bent on the left, kill the cars in 2025, force vaccinations, all of this. And then all of a sudden it's like, but if you don't want to have an ID, it's a free for all on voting. We don't care.
That's really interesting. So you don't have to have an ID to vote. This just hit me. I'm so slow. You don't have to have an ID to vote, but you better give the IRS your face.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, really, that's where we're at.
Yeah.
Well, and it just goes too, because even today, Psaki was on The View and was like, oh yeah, if you had a stressful week, go to yoga, go and do a kickboxing class, go get a margarita. And it's like, sorry, Psaki, if you want to go get a margarita at your local bar, you better have your ID or maybe your passport. So it's just so dumb.
Not if you can do it, but not if you're a black person who remembers the Tuskegee experiments, because they're not going to have passports.
I think it's this constant dichotomy on the left of do exactly whatever you want, unless it's something that we don't want you to do.
It is. Go ahead.
Well, it's just so insulting because it's like, okay, if you take the logic back, because they're saying, oh, minorities they're not gonna know how to go there, and they're not gonna have the resources to get there. Think about what that's saying. And I know Candace Owens has said it before, so you can go find her comments on it. But it's literally the idea that people are too stupid to go vote, if you're a minority or person of color. Can you imagine just being told by your government and by people who are in office that if you're a certain race, then maybe you're just too disadvantaged and too intellectually dumb to be able to go get an ID to vote? It's so ridiculous.
Imagine if the argument were, well, you're a woman, so you probably don't have a driver's license, and you're going to have a hard time finding the polling location. Yeah. Imagine that. Yeah. How insulting that would be.
It's so insulting. And the patronization is just incredible. Oh, and when you patronize to that degree, then you force discrimination upon people. Well, it's that simple.
I love I don't love it. I hate the internal contradiction here. The idea that it was a freedom to vote bill. I want to know how, if Abby can cast 2 votes, but I only cast 1 because I'm going to follow the law. Right. Abby decides she doesn't need voter ID. She's going to cast 2 votes. She's just stolen my vote. How is that freedom for me to vote?
Yeah.
There's no freedom for me to vote there. It's freedom for people who are dishonest to vote. That's what it should have been called. Free to vote if you're dishonest. You had a better term.
Freedom for criminality.
Freedom for criminality. That's exactly right.